The subject to which our attention is to be directed in this series of lectures is ordinarily spoken of as the plan of salvation. Its more technical designation is the order of decrees. And this technical designation has the advantage over the more popular one of more accurately defining the scope of the subject matter. This is not commonly confined to the processes of salvation itself, but is generally made to include the entire course of the divine dealing with man, which ends in his salvation. Creation is not uncommonly comprehended in it, and of course, the fall and the condition of man brought about by the fall. This portion of the subject matter may, however, possibly with some pressure, be looked upon as rather of the nature of a presupposition than as a substantive part of the subject matter itself. And so, no great harm will be done if we abide by the more popular designation. Its greater concreteness gives it an advantage which should not be accounted small. And above all, it has the merit of throwing into emphasis the main subject, salvation. The series of the divine activities which are brought into consideration are in any event supposed to circle around as their center, and to have as their proximate goal, the salvation of sinful man. When the implications of this are fairly considered, it may not seem to require much argument to justify the designation of the whole by the term the plan of salvation. It does not seem necessary to pause to discuss the previous question whether God, in his saving activities, acts upon a plan. That God acts upon a plan in all his activities, and therefore also in his saving activities, is already given in theism. On the establishment of a personal God, this question is closed. For person means purpose. Precisely what distinguishes a person from a thing is that its modes of action are purposive, that all it does is directed to an end and proceeds through the choice of means to that end. Even the deist, therefore, must allow that God has a plan. We may, no doubt, imagine an extreme form of deism, in which it may be contended that God does not concern himself at all with what happens in his universe, that, having created it, he turns aside from it and lets it run its own course to any end that may happen to it, without having himself given a thought to it. It is needless to say, however, that no such extreme form of deism actually exists, though, strange to say, there are some, as we shall have occasion to observe, who appear to think that in the particular matter of the salvation of man, God does act much after this irresponsible fashion. What the actual deist stands for is law. He conceives that God commits his universe not to unforeseen and unprepared caprice, but to law which God has impressed on his universe and to the guidance of which he can safely leave his universe. That is to say, even the deist conceives God to have a plan which embraces all that happens in the universe. He differs with the theist only as to the modes of activity by which he conceives God to carry out this plan. Deism involves a mechanical conception of the universe. God has made a machine, and just because it is a good machine, he can leave it to work out not its, but his ends. So, we may make a clock and then, just because it is a good clock, leave it to tick off the seconds and point out the minutes and strike the hours and mark off the days of the month and turn up the phases of the moon and the accompanying tides. And, if we choose, we may put in a comet which shall appear on the dial but once in the life of the clock, not erratically, but when and where and how we have arranged for it to appear. The clock does not go its own way. It goes our way, the way which we have arranged for it to go. And God's clock, the universe, goes not its way, but his way, as he has ordained for it, grinding out the inevitable events with mechanical precision.